Boys, what is up? It is your boy D, and this is DeezCards. Today, I'm coming at you with the $30 Ice Barrier Structure Deck Challenge. Finally got around to doing that one, and gotta say, it was pretty tough. There is a serious challenge in trying to make this deck not brick. So if you were thinking about grabbing 140 of these structure decks with your stimulus check coming in the mail, I'd probably say you're better off spending it on a 10,000 Dragon instead. That's not to say I didn't come up with something spicy with this icy deck, but you're gonna have to stick around and see for yourself what I came up with. By the way, if you're here, you are one of these boys, regardless of gender. Make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, so you can stick around for some more awesome Deez Boys content. I got a beverage here, a little Eeyore mug today. My usual brew, but I'm filming this one in the morning. So if you're watching this in the afternoon, grab brew, crack it with me, and let's get it going, boys. When you open this deck, you see what comes out of the box, and you got to ask yourself, well, what's the strengths of this deck? Well, obviously you got Trishula and some pretty strong synchro monsters like Brio. Pretty solid cards. You got some really awesome trap cards like a Pointer of the Red Lotus, Crackdown. But the monsters, they got some pretty cool floodgate effects, but the real problem I see with this deck is most of the effects either go neutral or they go -1 in card advantage. That kind of makes it difficult to keep a grind game going when you're playing this deck, and that's the major issue I see. But I did build this deck as a strong going first, control-oriented strategy. Now you really want to ask yourself, what are the win conditions here? Well, I built this one, like I said, as a strong going first build. Now, what you really want to do is you want to get Trishula out to get a card out of their hand, and you want to get powerful trap cards set in the back row, like a Pointer of the Red Lotus, Crackdown, and Fiendish Chain. That's pretty much how you're going to be getting the win going first with this deck. So how realistic is that? Well, if you open up Revealer of the Ice Barrier and another level 4, such as Speaker for the Ice Barriers, then you can discard any other card to special summon your level 1 Synchro. This card special summons itself from the hand. You can get into your Synchro 9, Trishula, and rip a card out of their hand. Then hopefully you also have some powerful cards in your back row, like I said before, like Crackdown, Fiendish Chain. That way they can't play, and then you can keep ripping them apart with the strong Synchro monster, set up another Synchro play on the next turn. The other main win condition we have with this strategy is if you can open up Zujin of the Ice Barrier, as well as General Raiho of the Ice Barrier. Now, I was looking through the Ice Barrier monsters. A lot of them have pretty cool floodgate effects, but this one seems to be the strongest. Your opponent has to discard a card or their monster effects are negated, and that seems like a pretty good way to shut down strategies. Now, against a meta deck like Dragon Link, probably they'll be able to keep going once they get that starter on the board, because all of their effects go +1, so they'll keep having the fodder to discard. But against a lot of other decks and rogue decks, that strategy is probably, it's like a reverse max C. Instead of, you drawing a card every time they do something, they have to discard a card in order to do something. So I see that as a good secondary win condition, and all that takes is a normal summon to this guy, and then you tribute him to special summon this guy. This guy in the graveyard the next turn. See, that's a problem with these cards, is he can't do anything in the graveyard until the turn after he's sent there. And it would be so good if you could summon a level 6 monster, a level 5 monster, whatever, special summon him out there and then go into Trishula. But that's not something that you can do on the first turn with this deck. But that's your secondary win con. Get this guy out there, stick some traps, and hopefully they're not going to have a way to out it. So yeah, that's basically the strategy. That's going first. Now, going second, when you're siding and you know you're going second, there really aren't any great cards for breaking boards in the main deck. In Spirit Charmers, you had things like Raigeki and Dark Ruler No More, but the main deck monsters in this deck really can't break boards. The Synchro monsters, on the other hand, Trishula helps break boards. Trishula Zero helps break boards. This card's kind of whatever. You have Gungnir, you have Brio, all good cards for breaking boards. So really, the strategy going second is going to try to bait your opponent's negates and stick one of the Synchro monsters on the board. That's pretty much what you would do if you know if you wanted to go second, or if you won the first game and your opponent was going to make you go second, that would be the strategy there. But really, this is a strong going first deck, control-based strategy, and we'll get into the card by card now. So I'm playing 3 Revealer of the Ice Barrier. This is absolutely the best starter in the entire deck. Now again, this card makes you discard a card in order to special summon a Ice Barrier tuner from the deck. Now the problem with that is that's going neutral, and this is the best starter in the deck. Exactly my point is this deck doesn't generate a whole bunch of advantage like meta decks, but at least you're going to be able to get into a strong synchro monster on your first turn. Speaker for the Ice Barriers. Now this card lets you special summon itself if you have another Ice Barrier monster, and then you can banish it from the graveyard in order to get a token on the board, which potentially can come up in some situations. Again, you need to have something else on the board. There's not a lot of one-card combos. This is the only true one-card combo in the deck. Then we have 3 Zujin. Now, I would say that that's maybe a little excessive, but it helps us get into our secondary win con, which is General Raiho. I think that his Floodgate effect is really strong, being able to shut down your opponent's plays. So that's why I'm playing 3 of him as well. It's obviously a brick, but I don't know, it just seems like a very strong win condition. And I was able to open it pretty often. You have like 6 copies of this card, and you have like 9 copies of that card when all is said and done. Hexa, Spirit of the Ice Barrier. I think this is the best tuner that is in the Ice Barrier archetype because it can modulate its own level. I have 1 Defender of the Ice Barrier to send to grave with this card, but the card itself isn't very good, so that's why I'm only playing 1 of it. Then I'm playing 3 Fishborg Launchers. It's pretty good that it can revive itself if you have another water engrave, and you'll pretty much always have another water engrave, so I have 3 of those in there as another level 1 tuner. You notice I'm playing a lot of level 4 monsters, so getting into a level 9 with the level 1 tuner is pretty strong. Then we have 2 Silent Anglers. These are just kind of extenders, but you need another water monster to special summon, but if you have a Silent Angler, you can special summon a Silent Angler. I think this deck would be beefed up by some rank 4 Xyz monsters in the extra deck if you wanted to add that yourself. We got 3 Wins over the Ice Barrier. Now, you can turn any combination of Ice Barrier monsters into what you want. So you contribute any number of Ice Barrier monsters to special summon from your deck the same number of level 4 lower. So you go -1 with this one. That's again, you get special summon from the deck, but you have to go -1 to do it. But it can help you get into Trishula or whatever synchro you need to at that time. So that's pretty solid. That's why I play 3 of them. Now you have a non-once per turn Searcher card, which is pretty good. Medallion of the Ice Barrier, you get to add any 1 Ice Barrier monster from your deck to your hand. Kind of a Fossil Dig card, just not in the strongest archetype in the world. Freezing Chains of the Ice Barrier, it's a monster reborn for your Ice Barrier monsters. Second effect, 3 or more Ice Barrier monsters, then your Ice Barriers are unaffected by the activated effects of your opponent's monster special summon from the extra deck. I don't think that that'll come up too often. It's pretty hard to generate enough advantage to have 3 monsters on the board. Now we're going into the traps. Now this is a very trap-based strategy. I'm playing 1 Terror of Trishula. The fact that you need a synchro monster on the board for it to do anything makes it kind of a win more card. But if you're going first, you should be able to stick a synchro monster, and then you get pretty good advantage off of this. Playing 3 Pointer of the Red Lotus. So if you can get Trishula on the board and a Pointer, you get to rip 2 cards out of their hand. It's not once per turn either, so you can play more than 1 of these. You just have a hefty life point cost. Crackdown, you get to steal 1 of their monsters, and that should help you stop their plays, as well as 3 Fiendish Chain. Effect Failure, obviously, or Infinite Impermanence is a better power crept version of this card. They could have given you Infinite Impermanence with this deck, but they didn't. But still, getting a monster effect negate is solid. So we're playing that. So very heavy trap-based strategy, like I said. Then you have your extra deck. You get the 1 Trishula, who's limited. Then you have 3 of the new Trishula monster, which is level 11 synchro. Still takes 2 non-tuner monsters. A little tougher to get into, but if you wanted to go into this instead of Trishula, with the level 1 Ice Barrier monster and the 2 level 4s, you could choose to go into this by sending the level 3 to the grave. Or if you hard drew the level 3 synchro monster, or the level 3 tuner, you could go into this as well with 2 level 4s. Dulorin, Tiger King of the Ice Barrier. This guy really just bounces stuff back to your own hand, increases its attack. It's a hard once per turn now, so it's off the limited list. Doesn't seem very good, but I don't know how it was abused in the past. Gungnir, this card just lets you discard 2 cards and destroy your opponent's cards. Now the problem is it takes a lot of resources to get into these synchro monsters, so you're going to be digging your whole hand into using this guy, or Brionic. You also have to discard cards to bounce back to the hand. Now that's the thing is, you know, you got to manage your resources with this deck because you don't have a whole lot of stuff to discard. You're going to have to pretty much every time go into the big synchro monster, dump your whole hand in order to do things with it, and then hope you hard draw something good on the next turn. So you really want to try to lock it down with those trap cards early on in the game. For a side deck, you could mess with Heavy Storm Duster, pretty solid card. Mind Drain, you're special summoning from the hand yourself a lot, so maybe not the best card, but if you can stick it going first, then and you know that your opponent's on a strategy that does that, then that's a pretty good card. Then General Wayne, that card's only good going second because that your opponent needs to control a monster, so I put it in the side deck, but it does get you a level 5 special summon that lets you add a spell or trap from your deck to your hand, so it's pretty solid, but you have to know you're going second to play it. Dance Princess of the Ice Barrier lets you bounce spells and traps back to your opponent's hand. Spellbreaker, they can't activate spell cards until the end of your next turn while this monster's on the field, so it's basically a cold wave. Warlock of the Ice Barrier, it's an anti-spell fragrance. So there are some good effects, but they're hard to stick and keep stuck. Then you have this guy, the Elemental Lord, Mulinglacia. Oh, that's not that bad. Hooked on phonics. Mulinglacia, the Elemental Lord. If you can get exactly 5 water monsters in your grave, which seems a little tough, you get to rip 2 cards out of their hand. I have this in the side deck just because I like the idea of it. I want to playtest a little more before I put it in the main deck to see how realistic that is. Then we have 2 copies of Surface to bring back your Tuner and a few other cards in the deck, but it doesn't seem to be good enough. It seems like the Ice Barrier Revival spell is better than this card, so that's why I only have this in the side deck. But that's some ideas for you. So boys, that is my Freezing Chains $30 challenge. I hope you enjoyed that. Build the deck, let me know what you think. I actually never look at other deck profiles before I build my Structure Deck Challenge deck profile, because what's the point? So please let me know what you would add. Let me know what makes this deck more competitive, what kind of cards outside of the deck, or what cards in the deck you think are must-haves that I might have missed. Let me know if you're playing this deck and what you think. I'll catch you guys next time. Got 'em.